have to spend so much time thinking about yourself anymore. Now you just have to trust. Firstly, we have to do this differently now. Trust that your time, the time that you've put in and the time that you are putting in is good enough. And if it's not, put structures in place to make sure that you feel that it's good enough, because that person needs to have some level of homeostasis. They need to have room for them to be them. And that means that your stuff cannot get in the way. My parents had me when they were young. They still had their own battles, defining who they are, setting up businesses, needing to work away from home a lot because that was the requirement for them to build something that they would, really wanted to leave behind for their kids. When it's your time to have kids, you take your own childhood and development into account and go, okay, what would I like to give this person that might be better than that,
Welcome to the Listen to Your Footsteps podcast. I'm your host, Kojo Baffa. In this podcast, I speak to Africans from across a multitude of sectors, including business, art, culture, media, design, technology, advertising, and everything in between, delving into their journeys and reflecting on the lessons they have learned along the way. It's about gaining insight into why and how they do what they do. These conversations offer a treasure trove of takeaways on a wide range of topics, including craft, relationships, wellness, parenting, entrepreneurship, and much more.
There's a lot of my family members are all like left-brain people, man, mathematicians. I said, I'm going to be a TV guy. They're like, no one does TV. I said, I will be that guy. Hey.
And I was looking at the film and TV actor.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are people still TV actors with streaming services? But it's on
streaming actor.
But it's
film and streaming.
But it's still like on the TV. On the TV. But I mean, I probably watch 70% of my stuff on my MacBook. Because the TVs in the house belong to other people. So it's like, yeah, I'm a.
I don't know why people have to say that,
And my wife. No, it's still early days. No,
listen, I'm on the 20 different versions of Baby Shark level still, bro.
Yeah, no, that's why. That's
you're still good.
That's why I'm like, you say you don't understand. It's fine. You got time.
Oh damn.
You'll get there.
Two, my man. I'm far still.
No. When you're still making plans, you're still going.
Yeah.
Where you wanna go.
Yes, I'm not the driver yet.
No, it's not even the driver. It's like you haven't reached the point where this is what's happening on Sunday. You are going to drive us there, but you're also going to pay for everything because I can't afford anything. So that's
the deal.
So your job is just to be there. But the plans don't take you into consideration. It's not like, okay, you had a match or you got work. No.
Yeah.
This is what is happening on Sunday.
Facilitate my life.
Guys, we're good.
Cool.
We've already started recording.
Okay. Oh, should I hide this?
No, you don't have to. You can just put it that side.
Okay.
Because I keep saying, I say this to every guest now. One day I'm going to get off my ass and actually phone Vida. Because I'm like, I think they're the perfect sponsor, advertiser for my podcast. Do you know Hardy McQueen?
No.
So Hardy McQueen's from Cape Town and he's done different things and now he's into wine. So he messages me the other day. He's a good friend. He's like, yo, how about we get some wine on our podcast? I'm like, it's not that kind of podcast. I'm not giving people wine at 11 o'clock on a Wednesday morning. And it's not that kind of podcast.
Yeah.
But a coffee brand, that for me makes perfect sense.
Man, and they are not too bad at all.
But anyway, so I'm going to do a quick intro.
Yes, sir.
And then we'll just jump into it. My guest today is Clint Brink, film and television actor, musician, producer, fitness enthusiast, and the head honcho at On the Brink Productions. And I think more importantly, husband and father. That's the most important jobs.
Most important jobs to me, sir.
Welcome, my brother.
Thank you, my guy.
I've been trying to figure out where to start, but if I was to ask you for a moment with hindsight that you could say kind of influenced the trajectory of your life and kind of put you where you are today, like what's the first thing that pops into mind?
Whoa. I think more so it had to do with what my home situation was like, you know.
Okay.
Growing up, I would say growing up, the entire, and I think it was a couple of things that led up to a specific moment where life kind of like dealt me with the reality of life, you know, and waking up from that teenage wonderment of having dreams and, you know, still being part of that, how can I say now, part of that, like a dream world of being young still, you know. And then life says it is now time to become a man, and you need to, and the decisions you make have consequences and ripple effects, and they mean things, you know. So I come from a background where my mom was a political activist, teacher, educator, community leader, church lady. My dad was a businessman, so he decided to leave high school early and chase his dreams, and he started working he was developing photographs in a dark room, right? And then from there on, in the building that he was working in, like a printing company, he worked himself up till he owned the printing company and opened up a couple of other businesses, you know. So he was a very ambitious, strong-minded individual who would follow through on the things he would follow through on. So that was like my dynamic. But also, all of those things were set against the backdrop of being brown folk growing up in a time where, for me, it was still close to the tail end of, you know, the riots and apartheid. I remember tear gas being shot through the windows, primary school, you know, kids running outside in the courtyard scared, being hosed down, shot with rubber bullets, all of those things, primary school kids, you know. So, and I say that because all of those things put pressure on our parents, you know. On my parents also, I could see that they were good people who were wanting to oppose a system that disallowed them to be free, and they couldn't. They had the types, well, my mom is still alive, they had the types of spirits to not want to break or give in or back down and do the right thing amidst a myriad of problems that they faced, you know. And it was a time where things went a little bit hard for my dad, and business wasn't so good because of many things I don't necessarily want to say on air right now, that contributed to him struggling in his business life, you know. And it caused tension in the household, and things were not nice. And I remember just one day, I looked at things around me, and it's like we all had an argument in the house, you know. And I looked at things around me, and something just said, if you don't find a way to contribute to the betterment of this unit, there will be a problem. So you need to do something. It wasn't just enough for me to be a kid and be good at, be good at what I did, which was in the arts. You know, creatively, I had a knack. I have a gifting for it. But that wasn't enough, you know, because just doing it on high school level, wasn't really doing anything. So I had to roll the dice, and I had to make a really difficult decision because I was scared also. When you do it when you're at school and you're involved in the arts, you don't necessarily see how that can actually impact in any way. It's more for yourself and for your development in any other way, I think, right? So I rolled the dice. I said, well, hey, I went to school a couple of years younger than everyone else around me. Paul is synonymous for producing great sportsmen, rugby players, cricket players, martial artists, So I couldn't compete with the guys in my class because they were always like 2-3 years older than me, more developed. They also outgrew me. I was a late bloomer. So I was like, oh, sport's not going to cut it. Also, I was never one of the top 10 students in class or at school ever, even though, like ever, right? So, but even though I had all of these teachers just say that, speak greatness into my life, saying that they really see amazing things coming from me. So, I was like, okay, I don't really think that I'm very, that time when you look at it from that perspective, I didn't really think that I was intelligent or clever, clever as they would put it.
I think also at the time, because how we defined, I think particularly in environments like that, the relationship with this idea of intelligence or clever was very, not skewed, but kind of broken, because you're being told this is what is because of the system around you.
Yes.
And then people within it who are looking at you and kind of going, you're clever, you're intelligent, there's something there. When you don't know how to define that from, let's say, an intellectual perspective, I can imagine it'd be very difficult to internalize it.
Yeah, I think you just don't have any context for it because of, for lack of maturity, I would say, and experience, life experience. So with that in the back of my mind, I was like, if I had to do something and put my best foot forward right now, professionally, what would it be? I was like, hey man, I've been a high achiever in this thing, 85%, 85 plus, 90, 95 plus, 99 plus percent, a couple of years. The adjudicators would get up from the high Stedford tables and say, we would like to give you 100% for what you've just shown us. But unfortunately, our system doesn't allow us. So we'll give you 99 plus percent, So that kind of like gave me a direction to move into. But coming from my background, I didn't have anyone that's ever done it before. I didn't have anyone even in close proximity that I could speak to about those types of successes or the hardships of it. We just saw artists struggle into their 40s, 50s, not have a car, not have a home, not being able to have a family because of, wanting for them following their passion, so to speak. And I was just defiant. I was like, yeah, but that's not going to be me. It can't be me. It won't be me.
You've always come across to me as very disciplined. And listening to you talk about kind of that background and the environment and you taking, because essentially you took responsibility for yourself and your future at a very young age, which is not common.
Yeah.
It feels like that discipline that you approach life, would you say stems from kind of those seeds planted then? Do you consider yourself a disciplined person?
No. I think because I don't consider myself to be a disciplined individual, that's why I have discipline.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of like it makes sense.
Because I felt like, I was weak at it. I felt like I didn't have it wasn't a strong area, simply because I think maybe the way that I digested information was different. Maybe if I had a different schooling system or a different way of learning, I wouldn't have had that idea of who I thought I was, I'm someone that can read 2-3 books at the same time. My attention span sometimes is short, sometimes it's great. It also has a lot to do with how I feel about certain things, which I also try and monitor, which is difficult to do because I need it for certain areas of being a creative. So there are all of these living elements inside of me that I wouldn't say negotiate with, but I try and converse with so that we have a commonality and agreement and move in the same direction. So I was always told that I'm too lackadaisy, I'm too easygoing, you know, I'm not really dit. And yeah, I kind of like just wanted to disprove people close to me that, you know, they have a very skewed perception of who I am. That if I want to dial it in, I'll dial it in. But it has to come from me understanding what it is, what the objective is, and what I really want to say with my decision, you know. From a young age, I kind of like knew that. So this thing came about when I was about 14, 15 when I made that life decision. And that's when it hit me, okay, I am going to go in this direction. I don't have a plan B. You know, I'm not great at maths. I'm not great with my hands in whatever they thought would be a great skill set then. But I think I have great understanding of what this art thing is. And there's something in me that has an opinion about it, or it just needs to be expressed. And I just followed that road, you know. Unfortunately, there were things that came across my path that strengthened that belief. I went to the Dalro national acting competition when I was in Standard 7. And I ended up top 10. I'm from an ordinary co-ed school, no art school, no private school, just ordinary ghetto school. Standard 7 ended up top 10. Standard 9, 2 years after, came second. And that was the first time that I had a real experience of what the entertainment business would be like when one of the judges got up and said, we all know that Brink boy was supposed to win. But because that other boy's dad invests in this university, we understand why it needs to happen like that. Firstly, it was great for me to see that, because that hardly happens in the professional business, you know. Yeah. People just do what they do and you just feel the repercussions of it. And afterwards they came to me and they said, well, you know, a 3-year scholarship at Pretoria Tech, we're going to give it to you for free. You can go study there and all of these things. I don't know if it was because I am principled or if I was emotional, maybe a combination of both. But I looked the adjudicator in the eye and I said, I'm no one's second best. I'm no one's second option. If you cannot publicly say this, what you're saying to me right now, but privately you want to treat me a certain way, I said, then I'll just work for it. No, thank you. I won't take your free course, which obviously my parents didn't like. Why would you do? Who's going to pay for all of these things, you know? But yeah, and I think after I made those types of decisions, I realized that I needed to be disciplined. So I needed to work on those areas.
It also sounds like when you say your parents are mad, it's like, I guess parents do that sometimes. Like your parents were mad, but I guarantee you that in a moment of reflection that go, the reason why you responded that way is because of how they raised you.
Yes.
Like, so you're like
That's
this.
What they were.
Like, you're like this because they raised you to be like that.
100%.
So then in that moment, it's like, and I guess that's as human beings in general, that's like the biggest test, right? It's all well and good to be principled when it feels like nothing's at stake, when it's over there. But when it's going to have a direct impact on you and your life, that's when we know how principled we actually are.
Yeah, 100%. In the entertainment business, times that by 1,000, you know. It's difficult, it's tough. So
what is it about I've told the story before, so I'm not going to get into the detail, but I also wrote about it. But I had a moment where I came to the conclusion that I'm not an actor. I have great deal of respect for actors I know because it's a profession. I worked as a booker at an actors agency, and I remember you'd sit there and go, but have they studied?
Yes.
Especially coming out of the era when the industry was opening up to all. And therefore you having people coming in with just an innate talent and then cultivating that talent in that space because the avenues to studying were never available to them. And I remember doing an audition with somebody that you know, and I did the audition because they suggested me and they left set to come and run the audition with me.
Wow.
And I was really bad. And they were surprised and they phoned me a day later and it was just like, to tell me that I didn't get it. But it was kind of like, I don't understand. And I'm like, listen, no stress. Like, don't worry. I know I was bad. And it's like, but how? I'm like, yeah, I withdraw within myself when a camera comes on. And I was like, yeah, but you've done interviews. And when I do interviews, I'm me.
Yes.
So this thing of don't act, for me, it does not compute.
Yeah.
What is it for you about acting that is so fulfilling?
It's the first time anyone's actually asked me that question before. What about acting is so fulfilling for me? It gives me an opportunity to be someone else. I'm someone who is deeply compassionate. I love people, even though, they stress me out a lot of times. I feel like, and even to the point where it becomes difficult to be in spaces where there are many energies and many things, because I've spent so much time focusing on what people don't say. Because that's my job, really. That's what makes me great. It's not saying the lines, it's everything that the lines are not saying. So when I read people, when I look at people, I don't look at the surface. I hear the tone of their voice. It's like sometimes I can feel like I can see their heartbeat in their throat when they try and swallow an uncomfortable truth or try and cover up who they are with some form of intelligence or bravado or whatever. Like, I pick those things up because I'm going to need it. Life is my library, really.
Yeah.
I'm going to need it one day. So I think for me, the ability firstly to see how I can transform into a character, a space, a human being, a life, a story, how much distance I can put between myself and what this character needs to be so that I am unrecognizable to a degree. And then the blessings that I get from that is that when the job is done and I peel that skin off, right, and I put it on the coat hanger and I sit down and I have a coffee and I reflect and I look at that character, everything that they felt, everything that, that challenged them in their life and their journeys, I now have. So I've got the benefits of extra insight, of extra compassion, extra understanding. It's like you are being deepened most of the time. And what I find challenging about that is that is now, which what I feel the craft of acting really is supposed to do. It's supposed to peel back your layers of conditioning and literally just destroy the ego, right? So that only truth can stand at the end of the day. But now that is in competition with being a brand and being a celebrity, because if you're not a brand and a celebrity, how do you make a living for yourself in a country where actors still don't earn royalties, where actors still don't have a say over their own image? I mean, that's my voice. That's my face. You can't reproduce that. Whether they like it or not, I'm already part of the IP. Just by me being me, I'm a contributor, I'm a collaborator, you know, because my inflections are not pre-programmed. You know, that's all me. That's my life experience. That's my training for over 20 years before I even came into the business. So for me, what's fulfilling about acting is to see that, and it humbles me because a lot of times I feel like it's a really selfish endeavor. You find people going out there who roll up their sleeves and do good in the world, you know? I find like a lot of artists, we have a tendency to hide behind the fact that if I do my job good, that's good enough to inspire humanity. And I mean, Sanford Meisner, the playwright and director who came up with the Meisner technique, he said it, and this is what I said in my SAFTA speech when I won a year. I said, quoted him, and he said, acting was never supposed to be about fame and fortune because it's like a religious calling, for you have been given the opportunity and responsibility to inspire humanity. And that's pretty weighty. And for me, being me, the types of decisions I had to make business-wise as a creative, that steered and navigated my course in a way where it could appear like I am a non-celebrity. And I'm like that because I feel the truth of the situation is I would present you with truth. If my job knocks down my ego, I can't come in here reinforcing it, you know, even in the way that I dress and present myself. You know, if I had to come in here with Gucci sunglasses, you know, 3-piece suit, photographer, videographer, behind the scenes, it's like I bring a show with me.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, everything becomes performance-based.
Yeah.
And one of my concerns, one of the things that kind of bothers me slightly in this world of personal brands and across the board is essentially that it's a lot of life feels performance.
Yeah.
So, you know, social media, et cetera, we've gone to the point where even just walking down the street looks like a performance. And you kind of go, who's the person? And I had a couple of questions, but the kind of from when you were coming up, right? And there's that idea of kind of fame and fortune and what the industry looked like then.
Define coming up.
Well, I mean, when you broke onto the scene and we all got excited, there's this new actor, Clint Brink, and you were backstage, and you were the next generation, right? So you were the next generation in terms of, you know, actors and people in the industry. And now here we sit, over 20 years later.
Yeah.
And you're now the old head.
The uncle.
You're now the uncle. And having kind of also, it feels like kind of recently done, what's Kings of Joburg, where it's thrusting you back into the space. But it's a very different space. So I'm curious how you're navigating that and how you're perceiving it with that experience, with that knowledge of the industry.
Yeah.
Kind of just those two inflection points, even though we're in the middle of the current one.
Yeah. To just completely answer your previous question, what do I find so fulfilling about it, right? Is that I always just still remember when I said I left the house early, left home early, decided to set out on a path and a journey with no mentorship. I mean, and when I say mentorship, I don't just mean people who I went in class like lecturers and, you know, we had a conversation for a year or whatever. I mean, someone teaching me the business, how to deal with all of these things. Like I had no one. I really just had to figure it out for myself. So what fulfills me about it is that I've thought that if I just keep on doing something that I know is authentically me, it will eventually take me to other spaces where I will be able to do more good. And it's gifted me with that tremendously. you know. I mean, this for me is just like exclaiming it. We've known each other and we've been in spaces. I remember I came to Joburg 2002. I think we did the whole 101 thing with Uncle Phil and everyone. What was it, 2003, 2004?
Yeah.
Around about there. So I was fresh in Joburg and we met and we all had aspirations, you know, bunch of young people who just wanted to give. And I mean, I followed your journey in part when I wasn't on set, entrenched in my own stuff, you know, and seeing your growth and seeing you just being so diverse and passionate and articulate and brave and, you know, bold, you know, and sensitive at the same time and masculine. It's for me to sit here and have this conversation with you is great for me. So that's nice, which tells me that if you follow spirit will lead you to, you know, where it connects with where it fulfills your essence. So in the doing of being an actor, there's a lot of undoing that happens simultaneously. So I get filled up there. I get approached by other people to have different types of conversations. And I always tell people, you know, young cats, it's not your talent doesn't change the world. Your story does. Your talent gets you in the room. It makes you visible. It's the vehicle, right? But what you had to go through, your story is the thing that transforms people. And ultimately, I think that is what creativity desires, is that transfiguration of self and the environment around you. So that's what fulfills me about it. And now about what Backstage was and Kings of Joburg, how things were, it's just really interesting for me to see myself through other people's eyes, you know, because that's what when they tweet, that's what they see, you know, how they experience you. And with art being a subjective thing, you have no control of it. All you can do is just be in the moments, and then afterwards, man, it's every guy for himself. You know, everyone's got an opinion. So it's always deeply humbling and overwhelming when you get positive feedback, and lots of it. And 25 years in this business, I've had lots of it. Kings of Joburg thing kind of like got me to the point where I was like, hey, I don't know how to handle all of this, you know. Yeah, thanks, but you know, it's cool though. And then I also realized that the human attention span is something to behold, bro. You know? And also like what types of moments touch people and move people, because I had a lot of people saying like, wow, bro, great to have you back on TV, on our screens, when in essence, I've never left. And they were like, it's just to, you know, see you like this, I didn't know that you had all of this range and all of this ability, not knowing that, you know, for a lot of artists to have that showcasing of what's inside, you know, it has to align with an opportunity that gives them that platform. Yeah. Which is a whole different conversation, because then we have to get into the business of the business.
And the lack of
whatever.
Lack of
many
opportunity,
things.
the lack of,
you know, and still in a very young, developing business, I would say. Many hurdles that we still have to overcome in this industry, but we're doing really great if we take a look at what has happened to film and television, just the arts in 10 years in South Africa. It's been a big leap forward. So to be thrusted into the space again where I can reconnect with, I would just say different demographics, because I felt like that's what it was with being on Binnelanders for 9 years. I don't know how it got to the point where the powers that be came together and made a decision and said, you know, if you're Afrikaans speaking, we're just going to put everyone in one drawer, you know? So we're going to put the white Afrikaans speaking people, colored Afrikaans speaking people, we're going to put everyone in one drawer so that we can manage this thing, right? And then discussions were had and structures were put in place to keep certain people in a certain bubble to, I would say, serve a certain narrative that might not personally be your own views or preferred artistic expression. So being on Binnenlanders for 9 years, and I saw people started tweeting. Whenever I ran into people, they would be like, "Yo, Chief, did you stop acting?" I'm like, "What is this? What do you mean?"
I'll be honest, I didn't know you were in Binnenlanders for 9 years because I don't speak Afrikaans. I don't
But this blew me away that the industry is actually so fragmented and polarized to a degree that I didn't know it was like that, you know. When people came to me and said, Binnenland is one of the biggest Afrikaans shows in this country, I'm like, oh, snap. I mean, I was on Generations, right? They said that's one of the biggest shows in the country. So I went there, and when I walked into the building, people greeted me like this was my first time on set, like I just came from varsity. And I just had 15 years of experience, couple of nominations behind my back, you know. I was like, that's really interesting, okay? And then I felt like in this Afrikaans world, I now had to work my way back up to be respected and to be
yourself,
seen.
like all over again.
Prove myself all over again, you know. And I took the challenge upon myself. I wasn't entitled. I'm like, hey, someone else's house. I'm not going to walk in there and just open the fridge. You know, I'm going to sit on your couch, speak when I'm spoken to, you know, go above and beyond when you need me to say, hey, but I'm not going to put it, you know, rub it in your face. I do it subtly. But yeah, I would have conversations with people on that side of the business, and I asked them if they've ever heard of people like Bonang or AKA. They're like, who? I'm like, damn, really? So it's just like, you know, that polarization. So when Kings of Joburg happened, and I mean, the way that Kings of Joburg happened for me is more interesting than you know, just what the gig was able to provide for me. Literally, the day that I resigned from Binnenlanders, I handed in my resignation letter that day. I got a phone call from Samar Davis, who is, you know, one of the producers and the director of the show. And he called me on that very day. He said, hey, man, you know, I'd like to hook up with you, have a conversation. I got your number from, well, I was told by Zolisa, you know, maybe I should have a conversation with you. I said, oh, okay, cool. Next day, met up with him, had a convo. It was supposed to be like a 15-minute to half an hour conversation. Turned out to be like a 2-hour connection with the brother, you know. And I remember shortly after that, he was like, so we want to start shooting in the end of March. I'm like, I'm serving notice till like the 12th of April. He's like, ah, man, that is horrible. That is horrible. Hey, anyway, in the meantime, I'm just going to send you the scripts. Read it, tell me what you think. I said, okay. But then I felt like, you know, it wasn't going to happen. There's no producer in South Africa. As soon as you let them know that you are not available for more than a week, or what it is they need you for, you can forget it. They'll scrap you. They'll just move on to the next actor, right? 2 days later, I get a phone call from my agent saying that they moved everything to the 1st of May. And they will start shooting on the 1st of May. And in 25 years of being in this business, no one's ever done that, you know. No matter, I think most of the producers, writers, directors, cast and crew that I've worked with over the last 25 years can tell you that I'm pretty efficient when I walk onto set. I don't waste anyone's time. I respect the gig. I respect the subject matter, you know, and I respect the fact that I'm a professional and I need to deliver a professional service. And even that wasn't enough to convince other people otherwise. I mean, when my dad passed away, I was busy with heavy A storylines at Binnenlanders. And I remember going to the production office and I said, hey, listen, my old man is really sick. I need to go home. They were like, Clint, you in A storylines here, bro. If you're not here, we can't shoot. What are we gonna do, right? And you understand it because it's a big ship to turn. You can't just like pull up the handbrake and say, okay, cool, take a month, take 2 off, you know. This business is difficult. And And I got to see him. I only got to see him the day before he passed away, you know, because I was still working. And to have that experience after my dad passed away, where someone said, well, hey man, I'm going to move this entire production, this Netflix production, this series. We're not just talking about a feature film, we're talking about a series, right? Lots of moving parts. Move that entire production.
That already has a track record. It's not like it's first season. Like,
do you know what I mean?
You're building on, and there's an expectation from.
I'm an additive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And to have that experience, I was like, check, green light for me, green flag. So now for me in this business, also because if you're aware of energy and you pay attention to things, you're able to read things, you know, you're able to read situations, people, the tone, the feel of it. When a lot of things started changing and, you know, roles for colored people started declining, and I looked at myself, I'm like, hey, shelf life wise, I still have it really good in this business because people can just decide one day, hey, you know, he's oversaturated. We've seen enough of him. We want a different face. We want a different energy, you know, someone that maybe is a little bit more marketable, probably, you know, someone that's younger. So when you look at all of these elements and a gig like Kings of Joburg comes along, when I'm turning 45 this year, I'm like, that means that at least I'm doing something right, you know. And my focus is always on just the work, doing good work, quality work, having good experiences with people, of people, you know, having people have good experience of me. And the thing that always stuck with me was that whatever space I walk into, I just want to make sure that I leave it in a better condition than what I found it in, you know. That's just been like a standing thing for me.
One of my favorite old quotes, and I don't even know where it's from, was for me, kind of success or legacy is having left my little patch of this earth, however small it may be, better for my having been in it when I'm gone. It's not being remembered, you know, for eternity, but just that this little patch, if it was better for my having been there, then I've done all right.
Yeah, then I've done good, man. And that's my focus. So where it's changed now is when I was younger, it was more about, you know, I would say just putting out volume, you know, volume of work so people get to know you. You're in their faces. They see different variations of you, you know. And then the older you get, with all of these other things happening in the business and the industry and the world, you just go like, I'm at this point where it's an appointed time for appointed things for me. It's having that in being more intentional and having your eyes open to those moments. I think there's so many times where we just don't, where we kind of like sleepwalking through things or just like bashing it out, hashing it out and, you know, putting it in a bucket, throwing it up against the wall and see what sticks and then, okay, we'll go there. When you've been blessed with maturity and just experience, you go, okay, hey man, no man, I'm choosing what it is that I want to experience. I don't have to buy into that. I don't have to do that. Even if it means that I've got less money, I'm not seen as an A-lister or whatever. Yeah, but do I have peace? What do I value? What's actually more valuable than having your phone be your best friend is to actually have best friends. Yeah, you know what I mean? And I mean, I don't know, maybe if it's, like you said, the old head that now has to make these decisions or you've walked into that awareness. But I value peace more than anything else, man, you know, especially because I'm a dad of a 2-year-old. I want her to have that. I want her to have a good nervous system.
How has it been? Because, I mean, you came to fatherhood a bit later than the rest of us. I mean, ironically, I'm the second of 5 kids, and I'm the eldest son. But I have my father's youngest granddaughter. And my son sits in the middle of all the grandchildren. So I had, like, my younger siblings had kids before I did. So I had, kids late.
Yes.
In inverted commas. You had later.
Yes.
Let me find a way of framing this. So I realized that my son was born in an age when I could handle being a father. If I'd had a child at 25, 26, 27, I was all over the place. I was more broken than I am and still trying to figure out how to glue the pieces together. I don't think I'd have had the patience or maturity, so I would have raised them very differently than my daughter. What do you see on becoming a father older, and you think back to your younger self? And it's obviously kind of all speculation, but are there things that you feel you do better now because of the person you are?
Yeah.
Than if you were younger?
Oh, man, for sure. I was very reactive in my 20s and my 30s. Well, I mean, I think this is assuming that I'm in my 20s, right? Let's say mid to late 20s, with the same type of circumstances that I've experienced as a human being that influenced me when I was that person in my 20s, right? This is assuming we're taking it like that. No, I would have been a mess, man. It would have been, well, also, on the one end, it could have also been like a big gear shift for me, as it's been when I had it now in my life, it's sobering.
What do you mean?
It's sobering, man. And also because I'm a bit of an overthinker. I think many creatives spend a lot of time inside. Writers, that's why poets apparently have the highest suicide rate. You don't know, spending time inside, right? Inside the head, inside. It was a good way to have me just be present. Go like, you don't have to spend so much time thinking about yourself anymore. Now you just have to trust. Firstly, we have to do this differently now. Trust that your time, the time that you've put in and the time that you are putting in is good enough. And if it's not, put structures in place to make sure that you feel that it's good enough, because that person needs to have some level of homeostasis. They need to have room for them to be them. And that means that your stuff cannot get in the way. You know what it's like when other people's stuff gets in the way. My parents had me when they were young. They still had their own battles, defining who they are, setting up businesses, needing to work away from home a lot because that was the requirement for them to build something that they would, really wanted to leave behind for their kids, change their circumstances, change the narrative or the pre-prescribed narrative, and defy the odds. That thing impacts a kid because you're on the journey with your parents while they are journeying, So when they get hard hits, it spills over to you. And thankfully so also, because all of those things are just additives, made me more dynamic and nuanced in my approach, I would say. But yeah, I think when it's your time to have kids, you take your own childhood and development into account and go, okay, what would I like to give this person that might be better than that, And for me, I just find like peace and somewhat to other people, to the outside world, you know, people outside of your home, it might seem a little bit boring, but it's great for kids so that they can run around and explore and develop and find who they are. So, I mean, that puts you in a different space as a man and as a father and as a creative. It means that you now really have to connect to the higher power and the higher source for yourself, because we don't know what tomorrow looks like for ourselves and for the people that we love. But you need to live in such a way that it evokes that trust in you that it will be good. You know?
Look, there's this internal and external debate. When you talk about like, so when we were growing up, and I'd say kind of regardless of environment, when our parents took hits, we felt those hits, right? So we now call it street smart or whatever else it is, right? Like my father went into business when I was 11, 12. And I felt every good and bad moment, even before I started working with him. Like when there was no money, I felt there was no money.
Yeah.
I didn't just see it.
Yes.
And now I have children, and I consider it my job to protect them from those hits. Like for better or for worse, it may have made me a particular way, but I'm kind of like in the world today, like I'm not going to then pass that on to my children. Like they must be aware that, you know, sometimes things are difficult, there's challenges, but I don't want them feeling it the way I felt it.
So how do you do that? How do you do that?
I guess I don't share as deeply what the situation really is. And I don't know whether it's a negative or a positive. I carry a lot of that stuff myself. It's like, I mean, during COVID or as kind of things were opening up, my children's school wanted to disenroll my children from the school. Like I didn't know that thing existed. Like just like you enroll and you fill the forms.
Yeah.
It's like they undo that. Like they disenroll you because I owed them a lot of money. And I worked on arrangement, made a plan, etc. They were none the wiser. And I've realized there's a lot of things like that they will, you know, will go through life, and it's like, you know, they don't really know what's going on kind of behind the veil.
Yes.
And I was reading a quote this morning, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but it's something that I kind of bought into about 10, 12 years ago, and it's influenced a lot of my decisions, which is my focus became, I can't remember the quote, but my focus became on the lifestyle that I want my family to live. So it's not how much money can I make, how many hours can I put in. It's, okay, I want this kind of lifestyle.
Life.
And what do I need to do? And so I work every day at creating that kind of lifestyle. And sometimes that's just on a Sunday, we can go for breakfast. Or it was my daughter's birthday recently, and she wanted a digital camera. You know, and I was like, what do you want a digital camera for? Like, well, to take pictures.
Yeah. Okay.
And I had to maneuver some stuff, but she got her digital camera. Right? So because it's about, you know, somebody was like, oh, is she into photography? I'm like, I don't know. I guess we'll find out, right?
Yeah.
And so it's about the lifestyle. It's like, okay, how do I create an environment that's conducive? But what went into me getting the camera and whatever sacrifices I may have made or maneuvers I may have made. I mean, we do that as, when you're
Yes.
adulting.
Yeah.
Like you plot, you shift things around, you know?
Yes. EQ it.
My children don't see that. They're not totally oblivious because when I can't, I'm like, yo, I can't
Yes.
because this is where we are.
Mm.
So that's to a certain extent kind of how I do it. And, when we talk about, kids have the soft life. And I'm like, but why must I raise them to have a hard life? What's important is the values and principles.
Yes.
As long as they internalize those, that's what's important for me. But if they can have a soft life, and part of that soft life is giving them tools to be able to go forth and do what it is they want to do.
Yes.
So they can continue to have it.
Yes.
I'm like, I'm not going to hold it against them because I created it.
Yes.
You are listening to the Listen to Your Footsteps podcast, a podcast in which I chat to Africans from a cross-section of society and sectors, including art, culture, design, business, and creativity, to name a few. We delve into their journeys, the decisions they have taken to get to where they are, how they do what they do, and everything in between. Essentially, we go wherever the spirit takes us. Now let's get back into the conversation.
So what I hear from what you just said now is that firstly, you have a sense of awareness and you respect your kids as individuals, as people, right? Because when the things that affect our parents, when they take hits and we feel the hits, is because sometimes I feel like there wasn't 100% considered that this person could actually also feel it. You're just a kid, man. You don't really grasp or maybe don't necessarily have full understanding. And I'm really just like oversimplifying this matter. But when you said the reason why I asked you that is because I feel the same way with my daughter, I don't want her to be oblivious. Life is hard. The world is a difficult, it's still the jungle out there, and you need to know that it's a jungle out there. But while you're in the house and we're in the home, I want to create an environment where there is room for growth. I don't have to simulate the pressure of the world inside my home for you to be conditioned by the time you have to leave and go in the world differently, And then also, you said you take a lot of that, you carry a lot of that stuff by yourself. So now we also understand as men and as fathers, there has to be a higher form of metabolizing stress. So how do you do that now? Because we're still in a world where, we're pressured to produce. If you don't produce, you can't barter. With that produce, you can't provide. So what do we do? So I feel like kids put you in a space where you become a better man if you allow it to.
Absolutely. That's one of my favorite lines. If we allow them, our children enable us to become better human beings.
Man, they will bring out the best in you. They will make you stronger. They will make you calmer. They will make you more resilient. They will make you more patient. They will make you more considerate, more compassionate. You will have to plan better. So, you'll have to upskill yourself. So it's an upgrade. It truly is an upgrade. So for me, that's why this experience and I think now that I'm older in my life, and plus, man, I think so many things that I've been through when I was younger affected my memory to a degree. I've got like holes in my memory, whether it's because of trauma, maybe I didn't have good footwork and head movement as a boxer, so my bobbing and weaving was crap. So, short-term memory loss. But now I do my best to drink in every moment. I really try to, But even that, it's so much and it's so overwhelming that I can't remember every day in detail, but I know that it was full. So every time she wakes up in the morning, she's 2 years old, so roll over to me and put her face on my face and like, you see this eye, like stare at me. And then when I open my eyes, she'll smile and then hold my face like this and be excited to see me. I try and record all of that as much as I can, you know, as much as I can. But that spills over to every life that I'm connected to in my life right now. So this is the gift that my daughter gave me. I no longer just have that for myself and for my home life. When I walk out and I'm present on set, I'm a lot more present than I used to be. You know, when I see people because it's important to be seen. And, you know, oftentimes we were raised by a generation that said kids need to be what? Heard, not seen.
Yeah. Don't speak unless you're spoken to.
You know what I mean? I remember when we're from big families, when we had Christmas and stuff like that, or someone's birthday, they'll stuff like 20 of us in a room with chips and stuff like that and say, we're going to be here for the whole night. Don't you come out and you ask me anything else. I'll bring you the food, and that's one glass of cold drink that you get for the evening, and that's it. And we don't want to hear you. Don't make any noise. Watch the TV, right? I go to parties with adults where the men still either want to go into one room and have drinks and watch sport and then have conversations, and the women will go to a different room and in the lounge or close to the kitchen and then tend to the kids and prepare food and all of these things, right? And if the kids are not necessarily the same age as my daughter, she finds it difficult to integrate. And I see a lot of myself in her as well. She'll just go and do her own thing and play by herself, right? But I'll take myself out of the adult conversation and I'll go play with her for the day. So I don't understand why it's more important for me to have a couple of beers when I see the need of my little human wanting to connect. And I just don't, I'm doing my best, and I say this with no judgment. I'm just doing my best to integrate all of the elements of my life in such a way that we can all share of it. You know, me, my wife, my daughter, we travel together, we do things together. I want that. I like that. Also because I'm not in my 20s, I'm not banking that I have like another 80 years of life left, you know. So many people now, I lost a friend, he had an aneurysm at the age of 36 and he passed away. I had another friend who passed away from cancer at the age of 37. You know, my pops passed away when he was 65. You know, it's young, bro. We see it's no longer just like the old and sickly who leave us now. It's, you know, things have changed. And I think that has a lot to do with the way that we've decided to live. You know, your bosses want you to work more hours because, you know, we need to up the productivity of what we need to do. But we need to do it with less money, so you're not going to get such a big increase. And you're not going to spend as much time at home with your family as you used to because work is important, right? And we are no longer integrated with nature. We're in cities, autoimmune diseases have gone up, cancers have gone up. You know, we are disconnected.
It also feels like we're reaching a particular age. But I mean, when you talk about that stuff, like I do some work with some Europeans, and now, so for example, like July, August, if you deal with Europe, you know that nobody's at work. People on leave. And I was chatting to a colleague the other day and it's like, listen, just remember to send this email. She's like, yeah, cool. I'll send it and then I'll be in touch when I come back from my summer vacation, end of August. And it's not a thing. And
yeah,
I was doing some stuff with people in Denmark and the guy had 6 months paternity leave. So we were working on...
My daughter was born 2 days after I was back at work.
So see, we were in his daughter was born and then he was off for 6 months and then I'm on an online meeting with him 8 months later and I discover his wife's pregnant again. And I'm like, no, you're packing them close together. But and I look to those spaces for how to live life.
Yes.
And it's been about 10, 12 years that I've been on this project. And with my previous guest, Teresa, we were talking about, I'm like, my children's understanding of what work is is very different, and your daughters will be very different from
Yes.
a lot of their peers, because I don't wake up and go to a place
Yes.
and then come back at night. I take them to school, and then when they come from school, I'm there. It's like I'm always there. I also discovered sometimes being too present can be a problem.
Yes.
But it's so their understanding of work is very, very different. And,
Yeah.
and I'm hoping that when they go out into the world and they start to build a life for themselves, they're going to build a life where they recognize that they can choose
Yes.
how it's structured.
Yeah. That's exactly what I want my daughter to do. Also, we were raised to get a job. In fact, the way that we were schooled was to make sure that we can get a job, right? But work is actually about becoming. Work is supposed to be about becoming who you are, what's on the inside, How does that now get to the point where what's inside now starts manifesting on the outside with an authentically you? So for me, the same thing. I have affinities, I have gifts. I feel there are certain things that I would like to do. I had a chat with a couple of film and TV producers recently, and they were really shocked to hear that when I said, "Hey man, if this is the last year that I do this thing, I'm fine with it." They were like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, if it's time for me to become something else, I will just be something else. In fact, if the only thing that they can put on my tombstone when I'm no longer here was that I was a great actor, I lived a really shallow life, you know? And I mean, Kojo, so many people know about what I've done, but not a lot of people know who I am. I've done many interviews, and it's just, pushing the TV station, pushing the product, pushing the character, pushing the show. But not a lot of people know who I am. So when they have that experience, it's like, wow, you have opinions?
But it's also, like I remember you recording music, and it's like you have gifts and talents there. Then not seeing you for a while, and you're now working out, and you're boxing, and you're training, and you're doing, all of this stuff. And it's. I've always believed like we all have multiple talents and gifts. What we do for a living is the one that we chose to kind of pay the bills. And like you're saying, there's nothing wrong with changing it.
Yes.
You're not defined by, and it's this challenge of people defining themselves according to their profession or the work they do. Whereas, for example, I wasn't raised to get a job because my father left teaching to go into business. So I was raised to take over family businesses.
Yes.
And by the time I was 18, there were 4. And I'd been working in them for like 5 years. And through varsity, I was in Durban, and I went home every month. I had a shop that I used to sell hair products and salon equipment like basins and tongs, and I used to go home and do a stock take. And when I left varsity, I literally left varsity straight into work.
Yeah.
And my father started an IT company. He's like, I'm old, you're young, you'll figure out these computer things. And this is 1994. So everything was new.
Yeah.
So because of that, like I found my disconnect with the world is often, I don't know how to define myself according to my profession because it's changed so many times. So it's literally a list that changes depending on how I'm feeling and who I'm talking to. And now I would say, I guess I live by my past glory because I've had a couple of titles that seem impressive to people. So if I go, I've been a magazine editor 3 times. I've hosted a radio talk show. I've produced...
Venomous essay judge.
That was because of the magazine. And so all of those things, like
Yeah.
there's a lot of those things that actually do not sit on my CV because there's so many and they feel so random. And it was like, why am I going to put that there? And then I have like 20 things. Like I've judged IT competitions and entrepreneurship experiences and stuff. And it's like, yeah, in the moment, it seemed like a good idea.
Yeah.
So I think it's that challenge of using work as the thing that makes you valuable.
Yeah.
And then discovering that they're going to overwork you and underpay you. And when you're gone, there'll be somebody else in that desk within 5 days.
I was about to say, man. So I think is it on a Fonte joint? I think it's a Fonte joint I was listening to. And at the end of the Fonte joint, they had a little vamp, like an outro, which is instrumentation. And this woman's voice saying one thing. And she says, "You are not what you do, but how you do it is who you are." Right? So I've always, even all of those things that you've mentioned, I went into the boxing and the martial arts and all of those things simply because I was challenged by it on a personal level. And I think to a large degree, many of my old friends will be able to co-sign on this. As soon as you put it to me that I'm not able to do something or I wouldn't be able to do that, hey man, that's probably like the worst reverse psychology for me, because I don't like being undermined. Well, when I was younger, when it still affected me to a degree.
And I guess to a certain extent, because you were the smaller one, because you were in spaces where you could not, you essentially could not compete just because age, size, development, etc.
Yes. And I was like, but there's a lot in me. I feel it. So I just went after it. Same thing. I remember when I did the bodybuilding covers. Hey, I remember the bodybuilding competition.
That person was greeting Kings of Joburg Clint.
Yeah.
Not the Clint that I know.
Yeah, that guy who everyone's having nightmares about right now. I remember my dad was like, because they've never really seen me go after training that hard, right? They were like, man, we know you. You're not going to, listen, you're not going to do this, man. Just, chill out, have a cheeseburger. And, 12 weeks later, the day before the show, I remember I called my dad into the room. I made him sit on the bed and I stripped down to my underwear and his eyes were just like, he was like, what happened? And I remember when I put my clothes back on, I said, don't ever tell me who I am and who I'm not. Don't have that idea about me, And I think the thing that hit me the most is if people would have an idea about me and then treat me accordingly without have had their own personal experience of it, Then you just get me fired up, man. And all of those elements, everything that I've done, I'm a lover of patterns, music patterns, jazz, classical music, Same thing as you find speech rhythms when you listen to poetry, rhyming couplets, all of those things, bro, everything that connects, I find patterns in things. And I'm always trying to redefine myself, my idea of myself, the limitations that I have within myself, and challenge myself on those things. And now the degree of difficulty has upped when you have a wife and you have a family. How do you do that? Because you still need to kind of like keep the fire alive for yourself, That being that hungry is what makes me not waste opportunities. and being wasteful with moments. So yeah, I would then take the monotony of bodybuilding and doing the small, boring things consistently over time, and then there's a reveal, and people are like, "But how did you get there?" Incrementally, that's how I got there. And then when it came to the martial arts aspect, because of my past traumas and having experienced hurt and many different things, I found it very difficult to express that part of me because I didn't want to show weakness, because I didn't have a safety net. And I didn't have people that I could lean on, really. I just felt like I had me. So I had to be really resourceful with me.
The alternative is expressing it destructively.
And then growing up in the types of neighborhood and environment that I did, I realized that certain people only understand violence. It's a language, And if you're not able to produce that when you are put in certain situations, you will be seen as weak. And if you come from areas where people still rob people, stab people, shoot you, girlfriends can get raped, all of these things can happen in our neighborhoods, The last thing you want to be is weak. It's like people can pick it up in your walk on the street, So there had to be something. And because that's not who I innately am, it's not what I desire for myself even. Didn't mean that I needed to be illiterate when it came to that. I needed to educate myself on the human condition. So what it's done for me, that, those first 3 seconds when you walk into the ring and you face off against your opponent, in 3 seconds, you're going to know, yeah, this guy's going to chow me, or I'm going to chow this dude, right? This is what's going to happen. You feel it. It's that instinct. When you have those experiences and you are an artist, more specifically so an actor, and you know what it feels like when your nervous system is set alight with the impetus of survival, I can now recreate that because I followed the pathway for me to get there,
Yeah.
So all of these other experiences sharpened my craft. It made me, more surgical, more intentional. And also, I fell in love with samurai when I was younger, where they had, on the one end, there would be these heavy disciplinarians, kingsmen, guards of the royalty, were given license to sever the heads of people who don't use their head, literally do that. But simultaneously, there would be calligraphers, painters, poets, musicians. So there was a softness and this spiritual yearning that's attached to creativity, spiritual yearning for an expression that was coupled with discipline and duty and honor. And I feel like as a man and as a father, there are certain pillars that I would like to have set up in my life to make sure that I am a well-rounded husband and a father and a man. And I feel like every man to a certain degree or at some point in time has had a conversation with themselves. I remember there was a show that Frank Grillo did. What was it called? Fighting? I think it was Fighting, about these MMA fighters or something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that, right? And he opened an episode with a voiceover and it said, the reason why people are scared to have the conversation about fighting is it will directly affect where they land up in the pecking order, if you're predator or prey. And when you grow up in difficult environments where your life has been threatened and you don't know how to defend yourself or even just come up for you, you live with that, that self-betrayal, that shame of like, I couldn't even do anything for myself. And I've had those experiences where, firearms were stuck in my face, my life threatened a couple of times, and that helplessness, because as a young man, I didn't know how to articulate all of these things. It would only come out in moments when people successful at bringing out the worst in me. And I would be completely reactive, no patience, no understanding, no awareness of my triggers, and it would just explode, right? So the martial arts gave me extra insight that I appreciate it for life. I still do it, even though I don't compete or train as hard as I do or as I used to. One of the things that I'm most thankful for is the way that it helped me with conflict resolution and confrontation. You see, when you're sparring, the thing about a sparring partner is to show you where your weak areas are. Now, when you start feeling like your sparring partner is exposing everything that you're weak in, as a man, that's the last thing you want to experience. You don't want to come across as weak.
Yeah.
That's why we put it on our shoulders the way that we do, or you swallow more of it down because that's the requirement of what it is to be a man, right? To shoulder more, to carry more weight, right? And this kind of like showed me that, but hey, if someone is up close to you like this, and it's close combat and you can't move, that frustration of not being able to even see when it's coming, and how do you read the situation and how do you protect yourself from that? Once you start becoming comfortable with confrontation, that it's just information that's being relayed back to you, So you can choose to be emotional about it, or you can just see it as information, say like, well, hey, that guy actually did me a favor. He showed me that I need to improve on this and this and this and this. So everything that I learned in every sport modality went back. I would just put that template onto my character like this and go like, okay, so that needs strengthening. I need to do this and this and this. And then I would put in the work.
What I like about that is, the challenge with, what did they call it? The bro pods. It's like men all over the world sit in front of microphones and have all of these theories about life in the world.
Yeah.
But what I find it lacks is self-reflection, self-awareness, and the willingness to work at it.
Yeah.
However uncomfortable it may be. Because it's actually not about, when you're describing that, it's not about the person, it's not about your opponent, it's not about your sparring partner. It's actually about you. And it's having the emotional intelligence to kind of go, I'm reacting like this because of this aspect in myself.
Yeah.
As a human being and as a man. Is that productive or is that destructive?
Yeah.
If it's destructive to me as a person in terms of interacting with other human beings, what do I then need to do to fix it for myself?
Yeah.
And if it's destructive, it's okay. How do I learn how to temper that? The biggest lesson from children is when a child does something, not reacting immediately and not shouting or giving a lecture.
Yeah.
And 18 years later, I am still trying to learn that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm still trying to learn how to shut up in the moment, take a breath, think about it before reacting. So for me, when you're describing it, I'm seeing that's what I'm taking away from it. It's not the martial arts. Like martial arts, like you're saying, I grew up on Bruce Lee. It's like, it's the discipline. A martial artist is not going to resort to violence as the first option.
Yes.
It teaches you, I haven't done it much, but my understanding is that it teaches you to take the necessary steps.
Yes.
And the first step is, how do I de-escalate the situation?
First step. Sometimes you just have to do nothing. And that's also, it gave me, really just added on to me being able to read the room, when the temperature and the atmosphere in the room starts changing, where it's coming from, where it stems from, So you have that spatial awareness. And it helps with like, I would even say like, it does the same thing. I mean, it reflects on the inside as well, you know, having that spatial awareness on the inside and learning where, for you to not get in your own way. Yeah.
I had a weird conversation with my son yesterday. Showing his mother, you know, there's a slapping competition. So you're showing his mother clips. And he was like, yeah, no, I could do that. And I was like, listen, it's not competitions like this, it's like boxing. It's not how well you can slap. It's how well you can take a slap. Because you could be the greatest slapper in the world. And we've seen it with boxers. I mean, I grew up with, you know, the eras of like, even before Tyson, but like I remember Frank Bruno, they always used to say Frank Bruno had a bit of a glass jaw.
Yes.
Right? So it's like, yeah, he could punch hard, but if you can't take a punch, and you're going to go down. And my son was like, yeah. No, I think I can. So I was like joking. I was like, well, if you could take my slap, then we'd know.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, fine, come. You slap me and I'll slap you. I'm like, no, Chief. I'm 53 years old. I am not trying to enter slapping competitions. Yeah. I don't need to determine whether I have a good jaw for this or not.
I'm not the one wanting to do the slapping.
You're the one wanting to do it. So I'm not going to be taking slaps from anybody. And I was like, there's a meme going around where it's like, the guy's like, you know, I'll see you outside after work. And it's like, yo, man, like I got kids. I have bills to pay. I'm calling the police.
100%.
I'm like, I'm not about to step out. I do not need to prove anything to anyone. I have been hit. It's not nice.
It is not
It
nice.
is painful. I have hit as well. It's also painful.
It is.
So I would rather there be no hitting involved in this entire experience. So, I mean, I was saying to him, like, he's 17, 18 years old, and he's like, yeah, I've been hit. And because my wife was there, my daughter was there. And I'm like, nah, you're at that age where you're going to experience these things. Me, I've had like 5 people stomping on me. I know what it feels like. I am beyond that now. You're at the age where you're still learning your boundaries on what you're comfortable with, what you're not comfortable with. I know. I'm very clear on what those are.
Plus also, it's not the same like it used to be, you know. Back in the day, it was like pistols at dawn, you know, fisticuffs, you know, mano a mano, you know what I mean? I hit you, you hit me, I'm gonna do it like that. Now, things have changed. People have weaponized so many things. People have weaponized victimhood, all of these things, you know, so it's dangerous. It's super dangerous.
We're starting to wind down, and I've been wanting to ask you this question, and unfortunately, it doesn't feel like the right time, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Like you're talking about your father, when your father transitioned and being at work.
Yeah.
And so my father passed, it's coming on 10 years ago. And it partially broke me for like a week. So for like a week, but especially the first couple of days, I was absolutely useless. And then 2 years later, my closest friend and my brother Gerard passed away. And that was even more intense than my father because he was young.
Yeah.
But those experiences, because my mother passed when I was a baby, and I never knew how to handle. I realized after my father and Gerard passed away that I didn't know how to handle grief. And I didn't know how to handle the conversation around it because I was so young when my mother passed. And you have had prominent moments and private moments of navigating grief. And you just talked about, you know, your friends recently passing away. How have you navigated grief?
Man, I've been to more funerals in my life than weddings. And as a kid, yeah, as a kid, I remember high school even, I was there when when my dad's mom passed away on Christmas Day. Called me into the room and she spoke to me briefly before she slipped away. I saw my grandfather, my dad's dad, when he had a stroke, and I found him. I've been with people when they've had their last breath, their last moments. And I mean, obviously significantly for me, also the story that was pretty public was the car accident that I was in, and I had to do that while being on the biggest show in South Africa, with being all alone in Johannesburg and my family down in Cape Town with like very, very little support. I really I felt like God just put a lot of people around me to just cushion the blow from a lot of things, But now I see that death also comes with gifts. And I learned from a young age that certain gifts you can actually only receive through pain and hardship. They unlock a different level of things and a different dimension of things. And as long as you're focused on those things, you'll be able to see the blessing in the transition, And when I was younger, obviously, no, I was super reactive, very emotional, imploding a lot. But I think the perfectionist in me, and maybe this speaks a lot about my mental state, is that I just didn't want I just refused to be beaten by things, man. I couldn't accept that. I couldn't accept lying down and getting a 10 count and then that's the end of my story. I was like, no. And I think that then, I remember I was drinking severely after that car accident, I never drank before then. I only started drinking after because I saw like, okay, well, this is how people deal with things. Yeah. I guess, I'm alone and, maybe it'll do something for me. And I just literally just tried to drown my sorrows and everything. But, God had a sense of humor that even I would be so heavily inebriated and walk onto set and barely be able to speak to people, but never mess up a take, And that was also like an eye opener for me to say that I feel like there's something otherworldly that's connected to my gifting. Like it comes from a source that is predetermining what I need to do with it and where it needs to go to be revealed. It's I haven't really felt like this is just me, because the idea that I had of me was a lot less than what I really am. And I still actually try and approach my life to that degree where I'd rather undersell and over-deliver than oversell and under-deliver, So grief now for me, I definitely only see it as transitional. It's not an ending to anything. I feel like it's something that's unavoidable for all of us. It's part of, and if it's part of life, we also, and the creative in me told me one day, yeah, but you don't know when you will end. You won't know when you enter your exit story. You, as the main character, you don't know when your end story begins. You're just in it. You're just living it, right? For some people, it could be the struggle of cancer. For some people, it could be abrupt, like a heart attack. For some people, it could be strife, whatever. But there's meaning in that. It means something to the people around you, and it affects the course of what happens after that for other people as well, So today is actually 2 years ago, my dad passed away today. And I thought about that on the way here, I was like, should there be any sense of any form of intention that needs to go along with spending this time with you. And I'm just like, what happens. I'm in the flow of my life right now, and I feel like this has helped me navigate a lot of things a lot better than trying to be so hard on controlling things, and just like cultivating a way of living that is more of a flow state than anything else. And you were speaking about Bruce Lee, who was also a keen philosopher. That's why he read Krishnamurti, which I also subsequently started reading because of my affinity with Bruce Lee. And that whole be water, be like water thing. My wife and I were having a conversation about it recently, where I was like, you know what, I feel like right now life, we're all moving on, like we have to, our feet, we're standing on moving ground all the time. Things are moving. It's no longer the TV. I think people that work in the entertainment business will tell you the same. There's no longer locking down the specific audience and saying, from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock at night, this is what they do, this is what they eat, this is the LSM that we serve, all of those things. Now everyone's like, you need to have a finger on the pulse. You need to be able to read people, and adjust accordingly, which I also feel is a gift. Doesn't feel like it to a lot of people because we want stability, you want some form of homeostasis. But if that is not what the environment is providing, we need to adjust so that we can live in harmony with what the environment is providing, right? And 2 weeks before my father passed away, a colleague and a friend passed away at work. I remember I was actually I was at the hospital when they wheeled him out of ICU to prep him for theater because he was an organ donor. And as I think the nurses and the doctors, they have this, what do you call it? Like this procession, or where they wheel the organ donor out and they pay him or her respects, right? And right then and there, when I was so shocked, man, because 36 aneurysm, really nice guy, was the only guy that had some form of connection between where we grew up. We were from the same neighborhood. In fact, he was the recipient of the Clint Brink trophy for artistic excellence and he was really proud to say it. My high school attributed that to, up and coming artists, creatives, and he was really proud of that. And when he passed away and he was no longer at work, I lost that connection. The only connection I felt like I still had to my hometown was being in a foreign space, so to speak. And as they wheeled him out of the ICU, my phone rings and it's my sister, and my sister says, you need to come home. It's not good, So already it's like compounding experience followed by more stress, and my professionalism just didn't allow me to do a bad job ever. So I don't know if it's because I've been playing various different roles, and when I was at Generations, I needed to separate my own hurt from what the characters hurt, and my hurt could not resemble itself, because then I would bleed into my character. Then I felt like it would affect me too much. So I had to create some form of dissociation to survive. And that speaks of, I would say, my psychology, I think Gabor Mate would say that in those, if we look at it that way, my previous trauma worked because it actually added on to me. It gave me different types of skill sets and ways of dealing with things and coping mechanisms and resolve and integration. So now I've decided that when there is a passing of somebody, to fill that space with love and gratitude and celebrate the life rather than mourn the loss of life. I don't know when we got to the point where we actually start believing that we are entitled to a long life, or a long life equates to a good life or an impactful life.
Yeah.
Our understanding of time is infantile,
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's made me, instead of me trying to navigate death has given me the opportunity to navigate life better because I'm not wasteful with it. You know, I drink it in, whether it's not 100% my preferred taste. I mean, I'm still being given something. I'm still being given the experience of life in all of its facets. So yeah, man, gratitude. I do my best to actually, I have to just say this. I do my best to make sure that these days gratitude is not even, it's not just a passive thing. It's not just, you know, I feel like the best way to overcome a lot of hardships is to actually start wielding gratitude like a weapon. We underutilize it. We think it's a feel-good thing, and the only way it works is if when I feel good, gratitude can kick in. But it also has, you can reverse that process, you know? When you use it as a tool, really, the effect is astoundingly, can even be even more powerful, because the realization of how powerful it is and what type of tool it can be makes you look at the tool and yourself and life totally differently. Yeah, you were saying, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, like, for me, the beautiful thing is how you've been able to find a way of using that to heal. So those experiences, whether it's trauma, whether it's hurt, whether it's loss, are not crutches that continue to hold you back. Because a lot of us tend to kind of hold on to that. And it's being able to use that in your work, but also being able to navigate it as a human being and ensuring that you become better, whatever better looks like for you.
Yeah.
That for me is the beautiful part of it.
But I also think that has to do with if you want to be better, and that speaks to the realization we come to as people, you know? And I feel like the fact that I've been afforded the gift of awareness, I also don't just take that for granted, because I see a lot of people that have a lot going on for themselves, but there's still that lack of awareness that just, so things don't necessarily seep all the way through or you know, just pierce all the way through. So even awareness is a gift and not something that people should just say, like, you come into that.
Yeah.
I think there are many factors that contribute to that, socially, psychologically, and obviously has a lot to do with, we emulate. My daughter emulates me, she knows all my songs, sings the lyrics, right? She sees how I enjoy music and she tries it out and to see if she likes music, right? So I also feel like sometimes our interaction with grief is like that because maybe we saw other people deal with grief like that. You know, my mom is the type of person still now doing a lot of church work, that when there's bereavement or there's grief that needs to be dealt with, or the loss of someone, you know, my mom is organized like this. Not that she doesn't feel it. She just knows that someone in that space needs to be a pillar for someone else, you know? So I got that from them as well, I think, you know. I don't think it's just my own personal self-discovery. I've seen that with my parents as well, being really strong people. And I mean, I've only seen my dad cry twice in his life. The first time that he cried was when his mom passed away on Christmas Day. And the second time my dad cried, so the 1st of August, 2 years ago, was a Tuesday. 3 days before then, the Saturday before then, I got a video call from my dad, basically saying goodbye to me on the phone, right? Saying, I understand it's not easy for you to just like stop things and leave. There's an entire process for you to be here. And in a way, he was trying to let me know that, hey man, if I don't get to see you before I go, I want you to know that we had a good time together, you know? And seeing my dad cry that day, I mean, that's firstly, that's something you can never erase, you know. And it prompted me, that's why I feel like I told my wife, I put the phone down, I looked at her, she was in tears. She was like, you have to go. I said, I know, but it's Saturday. No one's in the office now. I'm not the type of guy to really just tank an entire production and not think of anyone else and say like, I'm not going to respond, switch my phone off and just get onto a flight and do that. I just can't do that. So I reached out to the production manager and they said, hey, Clint, you're going like 7-8 scenes on Monday. We'll try and arrange it in such a way that, you know, you can leave as early as possible, which was not early at all. I had an 8:30 p.m. flight to Cape Town, and I finished close to 7 o'clock in the evening, and I had to drive from Randburg all the way to Lanseria to catch the flight. Caught the flight, drove to Paul, which is another like close to an hour's drive from Cape Town International. And it was my sister came to pick me up at the airport, and in the car she told me, she said, don't be too shocked. He's really weak, you know. And I walked into the house. And when I walked into the door, you know, it felt like I just got I got blasted with a shotgun in the chest when I saw him like that, you know. And he was watching golf. He was watching the Masters, actually. And he was on a oxygen tank, right? And I saw him go from being able to still, in his weak state, walk to the bathroom, you know, and do his business by himself, to a few hours after that not being able to lift the glass to his face, you know. And then it happened really quickly. And what wasn't cool for me about that experience is that I could hardly we couldn't say much to each other, you know. And then I started playing that thing back in my head. Hey man, I should have just like 2 months ago told these people, hey, well, you know, if you're not going to afford me the opportunity to go see him, then I'm just done. But in his contracts, you know, you have to give people 2-3 months notice before you leave a production. So how do you do that, you know? So you have to be a professional about it, and you have to mature to a level that might be really uncomfortable for you to comprehend even at that state. So my dad passed away, and the weird thing about that is for the first time, I mean, I was there with him when he gave his last breath, right? And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel as if he left, because I felt like I could still feel traces of his energy. I could still feel traces of the space that he held. And I still do today, you know? And I was like, wow, I saw this guy transition. And I think here's the thing that stayed with me is that, and this is really weird, is that sometimes when I feel like God is communicating something to me, I hear my dad's voice. And it's so more impactful for me because he knows me. Mm. My dad used to tell me all the time, he's like, listen, man, you did all of the messed up shit I did all of the mistakes. It's like carbon copy. He goes, I'm so scared to actually just speak to you because it's like I'm speaking to myself. And I know you're not going to listen. You're going to do anything you're going to do all by yourself, right? And I remember, so my dad passed away on the Tuesday. The Thursday, I get a phone call from the office saying, we're really sorry to hear about the passing of your dad. When can you come back to work? So they at least have a heads up of how long I need. I told them, I said, my dad's getting buried on Monday, because I thought he was going to get buried on the Monday. We were able to have him get buried on the Sunday. So I had the Monday to just be with my mom and my sister and my family down there. Tuesday morning, a week after my dad passed away, I'm on a flight back to Joburg. I get picked up by the production officer's driver. And I'm still going through a lot of things, man. I'm still trying to just understand what needs to happen right now. My dad passed away 4 months after I became a dad myself. You know, what do I do now? And I remember I had 7 scenes that day. I was on first, I was going to finish last, right? So it's a big day. And I remember after coming back from Marubini's death, the car accident then, one of the hardest things for me to experience was looking at other people not knowing how to express their grief to you. They didn't have words for it, you know? So I could just feel everyone's weight. And then they just looked at me in astonishment. Because how are you still standing, bro? You shouldn't be here. And the same thing with the car accident I was in. A week after it happened, I was back at work. Same thing with my dad. A week after I was back at work, simply because I also just believe, I think I just need to stay busy. I need to be active in some area. Let me just be active. But I was having a conversation with myself when the driver came to pick me up, and I was on my way to studio. And I had many feelings of not wanting to be in that space, because I felt like if I had more time, I would have had more info. I would have had more memories to carry me and tide me over, you know? And I didn't have that now. And I had this conversation with myself in the car. I was like, you know what, man? Maybe things should just go belly up today. Maybe the wheels should just come off today. Be that old guy. Blow it up, man. Get the stick of dynamite ready. You know, let it rip. Let them know. And while I was thinking this, it's like I could see my dad's face and his voice. And he said, you are not going to do that. He said, because where other people crumble, you were made to thrive. You're going to go in there and you're going to show them who you really are. Kick their ass. And immediately, man, I was working heavy storylines for a couple of months after that. There's not one director, one actor, cameraman, no one in that place could say that they had to wait for me for 5 seconds to pull myself together. Not that it should be the measure of anything, right? I'm just talking about my own personal experience. That they had to wait for me to regroup for them to finish their day. Because I was raised to respect people like I respect myself. And I'm no longer in my 20s and 30s where I need to be selfish about my grief. Everyone carries their own, man. I'm mature and wise enough and experienced enough to know that everyone's got a story, you know, and you really have to learn how to be kind and afford people the space for them to just be them. So I went in there and I did just exactly what my dad said. And you know what, still till this day, when I have conversations with myself, I feel like, just like left field, it's like an answer that he would really give me, would come to me in his voice, and it really just, it's different from when you feel like it's you speaking back to yourself, you know, reasoning with yourself. It's like your dad is reasoning with you and you go like, okay, I get it. And it adds on to the betterment of who I am. So yeah, now I look for the blessings in death, because it definitely comes with many blessings too.
My man, thank you very much.
Thank you, bro.
Great seeing you.
It's good to see you.
Thank you for listening to this conversation. Please leave a review and subscribe. Check out the show notes for links to the guest, the podcast, and myself. I hope you enjoyed listening to the conversation as much as I enjoyed having it.